This is the parable of vine growers. So there's a man who owns property, and he has people take care of it. So a man planted a vineyard. We're in Luke 20, verse 9. A man planted a vineyard and rented it out to vine growers and went on a journey for a long time. Basically, the guy owns the property, and he leaves. Now, they generally didn't trade in money as much as we do. So sometimes payment could be just, you work the land, you take a large portion of it, and you pay me a large portion of it, and that's our lease agreement. Rather than a specific dollar amount, it's basically a portion of whatever grows. 10 through 12. At the harvest time, he sent a slave or a servant to the vine growers so that they would give him some of the produce of the vineyard. But the vine growers beat him and sent him away empty-handed. And he proceeded to send another slave. And they beat him also and treated him shamefully and sent him away empty-handed. And he proceeded to send a third, and this one they wounded and cast out. So I just wanted to take a second. You'll notice that the treatment of the slaves or the servants gets worse every single time, right? First they just beat the guy, then they beat and they shame him, which could mean a bunch of different things, and then they beat and they shame and they wound the last guy, right? So there's this obstinance. Like, why would you beat the guy worse every time? Because you're trying to send a message to the owner, right? It's like, stop sending people. We're not joking. We're really, really not joking, right? It's like, leave us alone. We are in charge here. The guy had gone for a long way. Imagine you've been there for 5 years. You've been taking care of the land, and then the guy comes and asks for money. Even though that was the original deal, it might bother you. And so their response is, well, we're going to beat the guy, that we're going to beat the messenger. The second one is we're going to beat and we're going to shame him. I'm not exactly sure what that means. It doesn't describe. And then we're going to beat, shame, and wound the third guy. We're not playing games. So how would the master respond to this, right? How would you respond if you're in a legal agreement and the people not only are disregarding the legal agreement, but they're trying to send you a message that they don't plan to ever follow through with the agreement, and the more you ask, the more they're going to attack back. You're in a serious situation here. Verse 13. The owner of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. Perhaps they will respect him." Now, for an American audience, this sounds like a stupid idea. Oh, you just beat 3 guys. Let me send you someone I really love, right? Now, why would they do that? Because they have an honor and shame culture. So the son is more valuable to the people, to the workers, than just a random servant. So he expects the master of the owner of the vineyard thinks there's no way that they are so stubborn, so obstinate, so evil that they would beat my own son. There's no way. That's unthinkable. They wouldn't do it. And his goal is, and I like this response, by basically upping the relational connection, he's hoping to build a bridge, right? By upping how much he's willing to give, he's expecting them to finally say, okay, we'll return the favor, right? He's hoping that it will inspire a correct response from them. Verse 14, but when the vine growers saw him, they reasoned with one another, saying, "This is the heir, let us kill him so that the inheritance will be ours." Right? So, nowhere in the contract, not in the ancient world or in the modern world, do you somehow get rights to the land just because you are leasing the land. Right? You don't become part of the will and testament of the family member or the owner just because you're leasing the land. Does that make sense? They somehow thought that that's how it worked. They had misunderstood that they were only managers of the property and that their position there was based on their connection to the owner. But they thought that since they had been here for long enough, well, if we get rid of the heir, we're next in line, right? And so instead of responding appropriately, which would be, hey, God is upping the emotional connection. He's upping what he's willing to give. The owner is upping by giving his son. The response should be to, hey, okay, yeah, I'll respond. Sometimes God will it put something on your heart. Sometimes he'll convict you of sin. Sometimes he'll help you see his love and his goodness and his mercy and how horrible you've really been and that he's willing to reach out to you still. And there are two ways you can respond to that moment. You can either allow that bridge to be built. When people say confess, right, confession, both in Hebrew and Greek, that word is tied to the idea of just admitting, agreeing. I confess my sin. It means I agree with God that I have sinned. I'm willing to let his definition of things become my definition of things. I'm willing to let that connection happen. I will start thinking and acting like him. I will confess. We can respond that way, or what's the opposite? You just dig in your heels, right? You up the ante. You say, nope, I'm not doing it, right?